This is Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, a weekly game show podcast for game show enthusiasts. Episode number 2, Impending Sweeps. Recorded October 9th, 2015. Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, a semi-weekly. I realized that the introduction said weekly, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. It didn't work out. So we are here a little bit late, but it's happening. I'm Torgo, as always, and joining me this week, we have these guys.
Yes, hi, I'm Jordan.
It could be President Obama for all they know.
Thank you. Thank you. But yes, I'm Jordan, Unique Perspective, and my presence is sponsored by Hyundai.
I'm Derek, aka Super Sweeper, brought to you by Libman, helping you keep your wood look clean.
I'm Jason, aka The Price is Jay, and I'm not sponsored by anyone.
I'm Randy, aka Punchboard91, aka Jack, aka The Big Cheese, and I am brought to you by Best Buy for all of your back-to-school needs.
And I'm Nick, and I'm brought to you by iRobot because I'm broken.
Aw.
Oh,
You just wished you were dropped by Rachel. Don't sugarcoat it. So we're going to start off with The Price is Right. Not much happened in the past 2 weeks, so obviously going by episode would be kind of ridiculous to talk about. There's a couple things that we probably should touch upon. The first one
Not
is the
much happened in the past.
$13,000 5 Nissan Versa S.
You got those splash guards. You know, if they hadn't added those splash guards, it'd be 12,000. So you know that's the key.
The worst part is I know you're telling the truth.
Something to think about.
But
And not only did they offer it once, they offered it twice, 2 days in a row.
was that the same tape day, or was it a different tape day?
That's
I'm
a
not
good
one
question.
to
I
pay
wasn't
attention to tape days. But I guess the point I want to jump off is, already this early in the season, we're seeing much cheaper vehicles. Not as a whole, but it's week 3, and we're already seeing $13,000 cars, something we haven't seen since 2011. Is that kind of a foreboding sense of where the budget might stand, especially with all the stuff coming up?
But is it that horrible to start off with that as opposed to them wasting money and then we come in March and April and then we get the car, whereas we're saving the money now and we can go out later in the season?
well, I personally rather have them see a mix, and I'm not really sure when were these episodes taped, because I was under the impression that the episodes with Melissa Ordway were, if not the first ones taped, one of the first ones, but now having seen them, I'm not really sure when exactly where they fall in the taping order.
I will say this: these episodes did occur, I do believe, before the events of last week.
Okay.
So, last week did not have an effect on this week.
Now the other thing to keep in mind is that I wonder if they knew with these episodes being taped going on that they were going to load the showcases, like that one $50K showcase that had the trip to Vegas in, and that.
And then we
kind
had
of
the
thing.
one with the
But
Nissan
that
Leaf
wasn't
today.
one, though.
But I mean, in general, pretty loaded showcases too. So I wonder if they're trying to push some excitement towards the end of the show these couple of weeks for some reason.
Which
Whether
makes
it's
Well,
some
they've said that
sense.
before. They've said before the showcases is the most important part of the show. They've said that. At least to
this
them.
is-
That may not be our opinion, but
That's kind of the general trend that they've been going on. Although I feel like last season the showcases kind of flattened out. There wasn't as many. I believe the only showcase we had over 50K last year was the April Fools when we had the 2 cars. And then this year, like you said, they've just kind of escalated early, which is something we haven't really seen for at least a season or 2. So it's interesting to think about what they're planning on doing the rest of the season if they have any money left over.
It could also feel like that they're dropping off a little bit because we rode the high of Decades Week early on really quick. That was a week-long mess. Rather than having just one special or one season premiere episode,
that's
we had
very
the whole
true.
week to ride it out. So we were kind of spoiled a little bit. So maybe that we're back to a little sense of normality, that we're kind of hit with whiplash in a way, except not having like chairs thrown at us from J.
Plus,
Jonah
well,
Jameson.
Well, Vendo Price doesn't look like the most complex game. I'm sure it costs them money to build it.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
is the But is the prize budget? Do the prize budget and the set building budget and all that? Do those correlate?
No, not at all.
So
Because half the prizes are either provided at a lower
Sponsored.
cost or for free from the retailers. That's how they get the advertising money. I don't think that Michael Kors is going to pay money to make Vendo Price.
Well, you don't know that for
they
sure.
could
I mean,
put
you
Michael
can't prove
Kors'
that.
name on Vendo Price. That'd be great. Michael Kors' Vendo Price.
I could see
Which
them
row
doing
is
that
the
at some point.
cheapest?
Like,
Start sponsoring pricing games.
stranger things have happened. I'm surprised they haven't tried it already, honestly.
I'm surprised they haven't asked Major League Baseball presents 3 Strikes. I'm surprised they haven't started.
I'm
that
surprised they never did like Nokia presents phone home game.
Or
That would
Visa
be
presents credit
interesting.
card.
Money game. Make America great again.
Donald
Well,
Trump's
Red,
money
white, and
game.
blue.
Donald
Yes.
Trump's money game.
Find
Well,
the
you
front
know-
half of the wig and the back half of the wig to win the car.
But look
And we
out for
do-
the bankrupt symbols.
And we laugh at it, but then you look at Wheel of Fortune. What was that? A few seasons ago, they had the huge $2,500 wedge that was sponsored by something just plastered right on the wheel. So I mean, it's not
Wheel
that
of
I mean,
far
Fortune's a
off.
bad
Wheel of-
example because they have the gift tags and all that stuff. Wheel of
Wheel of
Fortune is just
Fortune has
middle-
an entire week that's sponsored.
Okay, but I'm saying, I guess on the wheel itself, like on a prop. I mean, I understand Wheel of Fortune is just sponsorship city, but
So I see where you're coming from. I do.
The only real special we had in the past 2 weeks on Price was the breast cancer show, which they've done a couple times in the past. I like it. I think it's a great cause. It's definitely one of the more merited specials. Why they don't have... Well, I can understand why they don't do like other ones, because breast cancer is probably the most... I don't want to say the most marketable cancer, because that sounds terrible. But it's definitely the one that's most in the public eye, because, the pink ribbons and the Susan G. Komen Foundation... And I just feel like it gets more publicity than the other ones for whatever reason. So I could definitely see why they do that.
Now, the interesting thing with the special this year is that I don't know if they've done this in the other years, but this year they were focusing on a lot of the contestants' stories about how long
they
they've been
have
battling.
done it in the past. They've asked them how long they've been battling cancer or how long they've been in remission. They've done that in the past. It has been a thing they did.
I have. How do you guys feel about those stories being included in the specials like that? Do you feel
I
it
like
adds to?
Because I always feel, and I think Bob Barker said this in one point, that the main focus of the show should always be the contestants. So the fact that we're spending time with the contestants, all of which have something in common, the fact that they are battling or have battled this disease and want to share their stories in that kind of nurturing, open environment, I have no problem with. I mean, it's a breast cancer special. You know it when you're going into the show. What do you think they're going to do? Talk about how to file your taxes?
It just sometimes hearing a story makes the game much better, especially if they win that game.
Because you're emotionally attached to the contestant at
Exactly.
that point.
Yeah, I agree.
Like someone that might. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I feel like they did a good job by having the stories, but not sensationalizing them and making it over the top. I feel like they did a good job with straddling the line, if you will, of presenting the stories in a good way.
They didn't do it like American Idol or The Voice where they cut away and have like an interview with 2 minutes with dreary music in the background and then people holding hands and walking away into the sunset. You know those kind of things I'm talking about where they
no,
completely
I
milk
agree
the
100%
moments.
with that point.
Yeah, those type of things make it very hard for me to believe that this person is, and I want to say they're not genuine, but that them being on the show isn't particularly something the show planted on purpose. And they tried really hard to. And I feel like with Price, the way they did it, you could tell it was rather spontaneous. Like they got the stories, they called the contestants down, but they didn't make a giant deal out of, hey, we definitely picked this person like us.
And the other special that we had was the NFL Thursday Night Football sponsorship on October 8th's show with Michael Irvin doing the showcase.
Can that not
I'm
happen
sorry.
again?
You meant Michael Irvin shouting the showcase. That's what you meant.
I didn't mind his energy level so much. I mean, I would rather have someone that represents the NFL. I like the energy that it brought. I would rather have him than somebody pretending to do like scripted comedy that they try to write in there once in a while with special guests. I like the way he did it.
I mean, if you watch Michael Irvin on the NFL Network, you know that's who he is. So you're not surprised when it happens.
And
Yeah,
since
I'd
we're
much
you
rather
could-
have.
You
I'd
could
much
tell that it
rather-
wasn't a fake enthusiasm, is what I think is, it was better than just like, faking it through the way and looks like they really didn't want to even be there. So I
Yeah, I'd
agree with
much
that
rather have a
point.
genuine celebrity than someone just faking their way through a script or reading off cue cards or
Demi
something
Lovato.
like that.
Jabs, kids. Jabs.
But the reason we're talking about specials is because they just released on the Price is Right calendar a whole bunch of specials that they're coming up with the rest of the year. And I guess we should just start in chronological order with next week, Big Money Week, the fourth Big Money Week. Big
This
Money
is a
games.
spoiler alert.
Yeah, this is a
It
spoiler
voiced the
section.
spoilers.
Please scroll
We're going
ahead
to
if you don't want to hear it.
We're going to start talking about big money and their games.
Well, let's get the obvious one out of the way, the $1 million Plinko that they still think is a great idea for some reason. Even if you didn't know it was happening, you probably
You
knew it was happening.
Now, do you think they would have marketed even if someone won or spoiled some way if someone won like 200K or 400K? Because one chip in the center alone would break the all-time daytime record, and I wonder if there would have been
If
some
that's
kind
how
of
they do it, do you remember a while back when, in order to win the $1 million on Plinko, you had to drop 3 in the center, and then you got like the golden chip, and if you got that in the center, that was the $1 million?
Yeah, that seems like way too hard.
And then they're like, $200,000 each. We have that. Okay. Even though CBS is definitely probably throwing a little bit more cash Price's way that week in order to build up sweeps, because that's what networks do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they said they were offering $4 million in cash and prizes, and as we're going to talk about, they're only offering like 1.55 million in the actual big money games.
So I was like, I think so. That makes you wonder what else are they offering? They've only talked about the games. That's it.
Well,
It's a new Bugatti.
In the past, they've really not done anything outside of that one game, so that might mean that they are mixing it up.
But
So
regarding the
I'm
other
wondering
big money games that they've announced, $100,000 shell game, which that's got to be the bonus. That's the only way I
yeah,
can see
that
them
makes
doing it.
sense. So, but that's still kind of crazy. Well, no, I wonder if it's going to be we're playing
50,000.
shell game for $50,000, and then you play the game and you can win the other $50,000 if you get the shell right and everything.
That's going to be the hardest shell game setup imaginable. Here's the
then
Lippman
they
Wonder
look-
Mop and a price of $13.
Higher or lower?
What they also announced, which a couple people actually caught before they went and announced it, was Let 'em Roll for cash.
I'm
Which
a little surprised.
I'm kind of okay with it, because there's enough chance involved, but you can win the rolls.
Yeah.
I like that game for cash more than I like Rat Race for cash.
So are they not doing a car and let them roll then?
I don't think they're doing a
the way
car.
the dice, I think the way the dice were is that the yellow spots are going to be if you get 5 of them, it's 100,000, and then they have, I think it's like 5. Is it like 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 on the
I
sides?
think that's what they had, yeah. It'd be
That's
weird if it
strange.
was the car. Yeah, you win the car. You win the $13,000 Nissan Versa S. You lose.
Yeah,
Car.
mud guards. But they had in the spoiler video, they had a picture of, I think it was Manuela and James in front of a monitor that said $100,000. So if I had to guess, that would probably be Let 'em Roll and not Shell Game, just because of how it was set up. But I could be wrong. But I'm just going to say there probably is not going to be a car involved.
I,
Very interesting.
Which will be interesting to see what the other car games are that day.
double prices for the 13,005 Versa. No.
That actually makes sense. They could actually do that. They could play double prices for the Versa, and when they show the prices on double prices, we wouldn't be spoiled that they're playing it for a car because we might think it's a trip or something.
That is true.
Yeah.
So the
What
three
were the
games
other
we've
people?
mentioned are Plinko, Shell Game, and Let 'em Roll for the big money. We have 2 more that we have to talk about. So who wants to start off the other ones?
Yeah, these are 2 we've done before. For $250,000 Punch a Bunch. We've done, what was it, Big Money Week 2?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm okay with this one considering how hard it is to even get the 25,000. I would say upping it up to $250,000 like once every 2 years.
Now, when
I'm
they
fine with
did
that.
the $250,000 punch before, did they up all of the values on the board, or did they only raise the
They
Yes,
had
25,000?
they had some
they
kind of
upped them.
special distribution.
Yeah, they
But-
raised the amounts of cards in there. Some it's a different distribution.
What I'm curious about is if they reveal where the 250,000 is, like they did last time. I think
I
that
think
would be
they will.
nice.
I think they
so.
have to.
Just to show we're on the up and up, guys.
I'll bet it's on the left side of the board.
1-1.
I could
No,
see it
not
being all the
one.
way. I could see it being on the right because the contestant starts on the left side of the board anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's it depends on if they won at 1 or not. I figure the big money has been sitting at 1-2, 1-3, and 1-4 this whole time because that's where contestants don't punch.
You mean that they just
Well,
keep the $250,000 in there from 2 years ago and no one's punched it since?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, you're playing for 25,000. Actually, we left the 250,000 in there. We knew nobody was going to punch it anyway, so.
So here's the distribution from the last time they did Big Money Week. It was one $250,000 slip, 9 $10,000 slips, 15 $5,000 slips, 10 $2,500 slips, 10 $1,000 slips, and 5 $500 slips.
That's still a
And
lot of
4
losing.
second chances.
I miss second chances in Punch,
I
but
do
again,
too.
I do
that's
too.
a subject for another day. I honestly don't remember what the 5th game was for Big Money Week because they took it down because they found out
Grand
that we
game.
found out.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
$100,000 grand game.
Grand game doesn't work for me as a big money game just because nothing really changes other than adding a 0.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if they're going for somewhat easier wins because if I recall, the 10K, the 100K grand game was pretty easy last time. Punch a bunch, you're very likely to get at least 10,000. Let them roll, you're very likely to get 20,000 plus.
Plinko, you're
Plinko.
likely to win $500.
I know.
And
Don't take any of these over pay the rent, though.
Well, Pay the Rent has a winning record this
season.
season.
To it.
So
Woo!
far.
Yeah.
Undefeated.
After Big Money Week, keep going down. We have the Halloween special again, finally. Hopefully this one doesn't get canceled.
I think it
Yeah,
already
let's
taped,
hope
didn't it?
Drew-
Yeah, it's
I think
already
it
taped.
it finally made it. It taped on the 30th of
Yeah.
September.
Let's hope Drew does not break his neck in the past.
Yes.
No,
Or
speaking
someone
of
doesn't
Drew,
fight it.
Now, speaking of Drew, this Halloween special, I believe, is the one where they want contestants to dress like Drew Carey.
Yes, because having everybody be called Pat the first on April Fools wasn't enough. Now everybody can be called Drew.
After that Veterans Day special, that's happened Thanksgiving, Cyber Monday.
Oh, God.
I don't mind
Something that-
Cyber Monday,
that-
just it's an excuse for all the tech companies to get their stuff on there. Which means
They've had that
more
before, have
broken
they
eye
not?
robots.
Yeah, they did have it last year.
They didn't have it last year?
No,
Okay.
they did.
Oh, they did. That's what I thought.
After that, interestingly, the first full week of December, we have another
Pet Adoption Week, where you get a chance to own Bob Barker's conscience.
I don't know if I want that.
Did you say
I don't.
conscience or conch shells?
Conscience.
No, he said
Okay, I
conscious.
wasn't
You actually
sure.
get Bob Barker rolled out to you on a gurney. How are they going to stretch that out for a week? I don't know.
But it's just they're billing as Pet Adoption Week, but it's pretty much, hey, here's a pet adoption and an item of forbids like the normal used to be 10 years ago. So,
Also
I don't see why they
interesting-
just don't spread it out throughout the season, personally.
Yeah, they used to. I don't know. Maybe it's because they can get more sponsors if they have a specific day where they can do it. I think it's interesting that the kids special is on Christmas Eve this year.
I like it.
Isn't that where Let's
love
Make a
that
Deal does
decision.
theirs?
I didn't know Let's Make a Deal did one.
This year, Let's Make a Deal is doing a family special, so there's going to be kids there, but they're going to all be playing as a family. But I just love the planning of that. I think it's a great time to have a kid special.
It's better than just kind of tossing it in the middle of March or April or whenever they do it randomly. But the thing
Hey,
about
one
kids
time-
specials that
then
bugs
you-
me is that they can't make decisions on their own, and technically they're more of accessories. It's like some people wear a crown to The Price is Right, some people wear a feather boa, some people just bring their 3 kids along. Because they can't make any decisions, and everything has to depend on the adult that's there with them. So I want to see just kids and no adults in the audience. The Price is Right Babysitters Club.
Okay, Sophia, do you know the price of that Nissan Versa with mud guards?
Is it $3?
Well, she didn't go over. They're bringing
Actually,
back,
dear, you were probably closer than a lot of people were.
and in the middle of January, they bring back Socially Awkward Week.
I thought it was awesome.
Well,
It
tomato,
is.
tomato.
I want to see how many times I can get my tweets on TV.
I don't
Yeah.
know how I feel about Socially Awesome Week because it feels like the show's just trying too hard to get with the whole social networks and whatnot. Because they do a pretty
I
good
hope
job
they
of
bring
it
back-
already. The
Well,
only
I hope
see-
the Twitter dance comes back.
I gotta look at it this way. They tried hard enough when they made their Harlem Shake video. Nothing can reach desperation more than that.
is that where
Kids,
Drew was?
watch us look.
Is that when Drew was dry humping the wheel?
Yes.
That's where
Yep.
Yep.
I could see them trying to get the entire audience to whip and or nay nay.
Is that a thing now?
Whipping
Yes.
and or
Yes.
nay nay, it's a thing. You
Speaking of socially awkward, should we keep going on the specials or should we go to our other topic?
we could.
What's
Yeah, we could
our
go
other
on to the
topic?
other topic. The other topic is moving on to another game show besides The Price is Right, because this is just a game show podcast, and we're gonna
You
move
happy,
over
Fleur?
to Jeopardy a little bit. And the main topic looming over everybody's heads in Jeopardy is obviously Matt Jackson and his streak of games that he's won. As of this taping, he has won 10 in a row.
Yes.
Yep.
10 in a
10.
row. And once again, everybody online and people talking at the water coolers seem to hate Matt Jackson because he's won so many games in a row. Similarly, we haven't seen this since Arthur Chu.
Do you think Alex Jacob got a bit of that because of his
Yes.
weird play or not really?
Alex definitely got some of that because someone that I know in real life actually played against Alex in one of his games. And let me tell you, people did not like Alex whatsoever.
And I have no idea why.
Yeah. But no, I think with Matt, I think it's like, with Matt and a lot of these contestants, the thing with Jeopardy is that Jeopardy has never been one to cast for their made for TV, everybody loves them personality. They
Definitely not.
test. No, I mean, they test for the knowledge. They like people who can do well at trivia and play the game well, and clearly Matt does that. So I mean, it's like, what will it take for people to like accept that Jeopardy, shocker, will get an occasionally socially awkward person that does well?
Well, not even just a socially awkward person. A person who's smart, who is dominating the game. People apparently have a problem with people dominating the game. Like, what do you think they're on the show for?
Well, I guess here's a follow-up question. Is if you look way back 15 years ago to Millionaire when you had like John Carpenter who breezed through his 15 questions and everybody rallied around him for doing well, then why are people having problems with Matt Jackson doing well on Jeopardy or with Arthur Chu or with Ken Jennings in a way who was there for 75 straight days?
I
Do you
thought people
feel
liked
that
Ken
it's
Jennings.
because do you think it's because of the quicker pace of the game and how much knowledge they have to run through in a half hour's time and that people just kind of feel intimidated by the knowledge? Or do you think it's more people harboring some sort of aggression against his behavior because he doesn't seem to exude much personality and he kind of interrupts Alex once in a while?
I feel
think-
like
I thought-
for some reason in kind of this like online millennial age, for some reason when there's like something people don't like in like a mass media sort of situation, for some reason that just pisses people off a hell of a lot more.
That's because everybody's
Just
offended at everything.
I think Jeopardy's different from Millionaire. I think John was the first winner, and Millionaire was just this thing that just happened in 1999 and 2000.
It was a
everyone was
spectacle.
excited to see everyone was excited to see the first winner. Here we've got Jeopardy, and people might think champions are a dime a dozen. Obviously, besides Ken Jennings, but so I think that changes their perspective a bit on how they view the champions here. They're not champions in terms of how hard it was to get where they were.
Oh, I think intimidation is too a little bit because of how he is doing so well. And I've seen a lot of complaints, well, not really legitimate, but saying that, oh, this person can't know all this stuff. The game must be rigged. Or I don't know, because the internet wasn't really as big 10 years ago when Ken Jennings was a champion, but I don't really remember those kind of complaints when he was on.
I think a lot of it has to do with the daily doubles, though. If you look at his opponents, some of them have gotten up to like 15,000, but it's just builds his total up so high they can't. They
starts
may have the
flying.
same knowledge, but
But he also
he's
kind
good
of
on the buzzer too.
Yeah, that's really what the whole point of the game comes down to is the buzzer control. But like Chu before him, he hunts for the daily doubles, and people, for whatever reason, hate that
They
strategy.
hate
And
it
I don't
so much.
understand why. The point of Jeopardy is to make as much money as fast as possible and more than your opponents. And you know that there's
But
one, sometimes two, squares on the board that can allow you to effectively double your score. Why wouldn't you go for that?
but I
Because
also
you
think
have to
so. I
go
think
from
he's
top
just.
to bottom. Because I'm a purist. Yes, I
I
think I
think
just mocked like half of Jeopardy watchers out there. I apologize in advance.
I think he also bounces around the board to confuse the opponents because, like, I just watched the show that the first clue of the first round that he picked was the daily double. He's obviously can't make any money from that, so he only made 1,000 from that. So I think a lot of it is just to, I mean, obviously maybe take away the daily double from the opponent, but also like just to confuse them. You know, you get this category going and then you just slip away from there. It confuses your opponents.
You
It
feel like
is really disorienting just to watch it because I try to play along at home and it's much harder if you're just skipping all over the board than if you just go, even if you skip around the category, it's still much easier to follow along because you're still working from a much more limited range of potential answers than if you're just skipping from one category
yeah.
to another.
Like if you're in a world history category and you do all 5 questions in a row, you're already in the mindset from the first question or two. So since you're already thinking about history, maybe you'll have a greater likelihood of getting one of the other ones right. Whereas if it's kind of scattershot, it's all random.
At the same
Pull it
time,
up.
though, I guess the devil's advocate argument for that is for like being hard to follow along. Isn't it at the core from watching along at home? Here's a question, answer it. No matter what the question is, really.
I think it's here's the answer, question it actually is how Jeopardy works. But
This is true. This is true. But either way, I mean, following along at home, regardless of the category, from like a playing along perspective, I guess my sort of like devil's advocate point would be again, all you need is on the screen, unless except for like the wordplay category. So I wouldn't think it'd be that hard to play along with. I think.
But
well,
people don't like things out of the ordinary. Things change that much, and one of the things that were reliable is usually people go down categories in Jeopardy, and people when they see something different, they adversely react to it.
I think a lot of it also might have to do with Jeopardy, for whatever reason, I feel, receives a lot more negative press, be it social media or in actual news sources, than any other game show. And I'll give you a concrete
Emancipation
example.
Proclamation.
Exactly, the Emancipation
Yes.
Proclamation. When they had that kid on there who didn't spell it right because it mispronounced it, and he got it wrong, and he lost, and he would have lost anyway, but that's not the point. And his mom sat there and complained, "Oh, my poor sweet little snowflake. He couldn't spell a word that everybody else in his class could spell, but since it's my son, I want to complain, and I want the money that I would have won even though we would have lost. I have fake nails to pay for."
The mother wanted to be a star. Now her kid has a chance.
That's
My baby's going to be on a one-off episode. Yes.
That's going to have to be a topic for another day, is when you have your kids on those game shows and how much the parents actually try to abuse that and get their time in the limelight.
But at the same time, if you look at Wheel of Fortune, the lady who didn't pronounce the G at the end of Seven Swans of Swimming, that got all the bad publicity. I mean, it's in the core of it. It's a game. They have to follow the rules. That's why there are rules for situations like that. So it's fair to the other contestants.
It's true. And when the only thing you have to do in order to win all the money is say what's on the board properly, yeah, if that's the only stipulation and you can't even do that without slanging it up a little bit, yeah, I can totally understand why they didn't award the money. Whereas if you have a game show like Price, there's really not that kind of room for error. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't properly say, you said 50 instead of 50, so we don't know what you meant. You're wrong. They're not going to do that.
And a good point is the range game that we just had a while ago, the one that was that close. I mean, they may as well, even if it was a little bit over, which if you look, it was not. It was right on there. But there might as well, it's not going to be unfair to any other contestant if they give them the prize, maybe spinning order or something. But, is it worth the $6,000 to have that bad publicity of, oh, they wouldn't award it or something like that,
That's true. But if you look at the tape, as soon as he hits the button, it's not on the actual price. It was like $3 or $4 short. But then you have the whole human error because there's somebody in the back. Once they hit the button, they have to physically stop the rangefinder.
Haven't they had a tech win before when the opposite happened, when someone stopped it and they were in the price was in the winning area when they stopped, and then it went too far?
Kept going.
I feel like that's happened before.
It has happened before,
where they lost because
when you're in the position where you're on television awarding prizes to contestants, you always are going to err in favor of the contestant. That's just how it's going to happen. Because they probably figure that giving away a $7,000, $8,000 prize is worth far less of a hassle than all the negative publicity they're going to get, and potentially losing sponsors from being hard asses about sticking on something because of the rules. But I think that's going to about wrap things up. Do any of you guys have final thoughts that we should disperse before we end this episode?
I guess the last thought I had is that, like, we were talking about how, like, people, like, sort of looking at Matt because of, like, his, like perhaps being somewhat socially awkward. Look at Wheel of Fortune. They've had contestants like their classic Raymond, who was a bit off socially, Trent, who was a bit off socially, who were universally loved by Wheel. So I wonder if that adds a bit more to sort of the jeopardy.
Just going back to price real quick, we talked about how they're offering a $13,000 car, but I mean, this season has actually gotten off to a really good start. We didn't talk about the perfect show that happened. That with a 3 strikes win in it, so they've already given out an Audi and $100,000 already. So good for the show to start out so strong.
But bad for boat manufacturers for that one boat that was mentioned in that brand.
Like I said, I think that had to do with the NFL not wanting anything to take away from the splendor of its showcase.
I wanted to mention something that I thought of before we started. I just thought it was interesting that I think there's only 8 games left that haven't been played. And 2 of the ones that haven't been played were High Low and Pick a Pair, which I think are 2 really strange games. I'm usually at this point in the year waiting for like Golden Road or I guess Step Up, and now we're waiting on High Low and Pick a Pair to make an appearance. And I just thought that was kind of 2 games that you would not expect to have not shown up. I mean, I know at least Pick a Pair was on at least one season premiere a couple of years ago, and it's just weird.
It's probably just happenstance. I mean, last year, Line 'em Up took like 4 months before it showed up.
I mean, it's always fun to play this game. They always choose a couple of games they play more than they did last season, and a couple that they play less than they did last season. So it's always fun to figure out which ones are going to be those games this year.
And then you also have That's Too Much, which will be showing up every week.
Yeah, That's Too Much will never change.
And obviously this is just the Facebook, people and the Twitter people, like, they're not us, but, it's just important, everybody remember that, it's just a game, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, outrage over whatever call the producers made or whatnot, but the producers do have the standards and practices they have to follow. So, if, I'm going to quit watching the show, okay, well, there's nothing they can do. Otherwise, if they, proceeded to your opinion, then they would be off the air if they were going against the rules. So,
I think people forget that the show isn't meant for their particular taste. It's supposed to go to a general audience. And if you don't like something, well, congratulations. You're not the average American and you can think for yourself. But the show's not going to change for you. And I think that's going to about take care of things. So thanks for listening to this episode of Contestants Not Appearing on Stage. And hopefully we will be back next week with a new episode. But with Big Money Week right around the corner, I think we will. So until then, see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, part of the Torgo Entertainment Network. For more episodes of Contestants Not Appearing on Stage, check us out on YouTube or online at CNAOScast.net. But $1 Million
I disagree
Plinko,
with you.
they
I
love
do too, but
shoving
move on.
Plinko in shows with the huge money amounts, and I can understand why. But who's backing up in a truck?
I'm sorry, I had to open my windows because I was getting hot.
Your windows beep?
Well, I turned it too far. I'm sorry.
Careful, window going down.
Sweeper, are you getting drive-through takeout while you're doing a podcast?
No, I'm parked.
Oh, so you're at like a Sonic then? Okay, that's so much better.
Tell me this stays in.
That's when I thought the cars could not warn me anymore. They warned me when I put the window down. Thank
Are you sure you want to do this? It's 42 degrees outside.
No, I'm fine. It's about 60 degrees here.
Oh,
I figured that or you're escaping your jail cell or something. I just wasn't sure what the hell was going on.
If you were in a jail cell and the alarm in the jail is like a car backing up,
That's a pretty easy jail to break out of.
I've never
like
been
to
in
stay
jail.
there.
I don't know.